Greetings and welcome to Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the American Society of Naval Engineers podcast. I am your host, Stephen Phillips. In this podcast, we talk a little and learn a lot about naval engineering while inspiring the next generation of STEM professionals. Today, I'm joined by Robotics Warfare Specialist Master Chief Jusup Hansen to discuss the FMMS 2025 Innovation Theater, during which he is going to join the panel that's entitled Advancing Robotics Technology for Fleet Modernization for Robotics Warfare Specialists. And I think I'm going to also talk to him a little bit about the rating and about the unmanned underwater vehicle and other unmanned world. So, Jessup, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Why don't we start off by introducing yourself to the audience?
Okay, I'm, as you said, Robotics Warfare Specialist, Master Chief Jusup Hansen. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I've been in the Navy a little over 25 years. I joined in March of 2000, so kind of been doing this for a little while now.
Can you tell a little bit about your journey and how it took you into this new rate, this unmanned rate, robotics warfare specialist?
Yeah, sure. I originally joined the Navy as an aviation ordnanceman. I served on a carrier my first tour, did a couple IAs coming off of there. When I came back, apparently the Navy had a shortage of minemen. So I was force converted to become a mineman, and that was kind of where I had my first taste of robotics and ROVs, working with the SLQ 48 mine countermeasure ROV. I worked with the Slick 60 Seafox ROV and the Klein 5000 side scan sonar, as well as numerous very others, a number of other systems that kind of utilize the basic concepts of robotics or mesh networks. And yeah, that was my beginning.
And for those that are uninformed or don't know, ROV is remotely operated vehicle. Jessup and I, before the show, talked about the fact that we both were stationed in Ingleside, Texas. We've both done some mine warfare. And so the ROV that he's describing is one that was used aboard some of those vessels for mine hunting and prosecuting mines. So now let's delve into the warfare specialty. I'm so glad that the Navy has done this. Describe, please, what is a robotics warfare specialist and what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question. The robotics warfare specialist is a very, very complex rate. We make up several systems or communities within the Navy. We have personnel that are serving on the surface side of the Navy with what we call the ghost fleet or the USVs, whether they're the small USVs, aka the GARCs, or the medium or large size, more along the lines of what you're going to find with the LCS class ships, and also the large and extra large, similar to the Sea Hunter, where we're trying to develop cargo ships, patrol ships, and so forth that are unmanned. Then we also have personnel that are attached to the USV RONs, which are training, testing, and adapting unmanned underwater vehicles and trying to further find adaptations for the large UUVs and the extra large UUVs within the Navy's construct. We have a good number of personnel that are stationed within the NSW community. And they're using a vast range of systems, whether it be UAVs, which are the Group 3 vehicles. They're using the small UAS systems. They're using types of UUVs, ROVs, ground vehicles. They're really crushing it over there. And then we also operate in the EOD side of the world, where we're using ground robots, underwater vehicles again, different variants of the surface vehicles, as well as UAS. And then we move on to just the other little oddball places that we're stationed as far as like CNIC, we're attached to base security, so we could do counter drone and counter UV operations.
That's really interesting. Could you unpack a little bit more how unmanned underwater vehicles or undersea vehicles are used for MCM?
So we have 3 different variants of the Mark 18. It's called the Mark 18 family of systems, or the Remus 100, 300, and 600 vehicles. We utilize those to detect, then classify, then reacquire and ID the contacts or mines underwater. We also utilize them for IPOE, which is intelligence preparation of the operational environment, so that we can conduct change detect and map out various locations that we would want to know more about and keep a closer eye on. We also can conduct ROL operations, which is rapid object localization. So if you have downed aircraft or somebody goes over, or anything where you would want to rapidly find an object, they can also conduct those as well.
What recent advancements in UUV technology have impressed you the most?
Oh, wow. I think I think just the sonars that we're starting to employ, the tactics that we're using now, and some of the AI and machine learning tools that we're employing with these systems now, and the fact that these fish are talking to each other without us as the operators having to inject every command or recode every time. They're speaking with each other as far as battery life, what is going to be easier, what is going to be quicker, and even covering and classifying objects on their own utilizing certain AI algorithms.
It's really interesting how AI is getting into everything.
Oh, yeah, it is.
What do you think that is the biggest challenge that the Navy is facing right now in integrating robotics and unmanned platforms into the rest of the fleet operations?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now is the old additive, this is how we've always done it. You know, everybody thinks of the Navy and we have a rich and tried heritage and history. However, naval robotics is not a flash in the pan. It is not a science fiction concept anymore. It is the here and now battle space. And I think introducing people to these concepts and what we can actually do and showing them our capabilities is kind of making forward progress, but it is quite a challenge showing people that we don't necessarily need a large footprint or, 1,000 people on a ship. We can operate small footprint, few people, and sometimes, in my experience, come up with better results at a cheaper cost.
Yeah, it's interesting. It leads into my next question, and that is, how does operating unmanned systems differ from traditional naval operations? So you said some of it, right? Smaller footprint and that sort of thing. Is there anything else that hits home with you that's different from, being a regular fleet sailor?
Um, yeah, a lot of it is the expeditionary lifestyle. You know, you work with smaller teams. Um, a lot of times it's also a smaller chain of command. You are often allowed a little more leniency when it comes to ideas and conceptual operations. So we have junior sailors coming in now that are, E4, E5s, they're teenagers and they have these ideas, and we listen to them, and we get to watch the forward progress of these systems or tactics or strategies that we're using just explode. And I mean, I love it. I love the fact that we're able to get these young kids with their new ideas and utilize this technology to think outside the box and solve problems quicker and better than we were ever able to do before.
Yeah, for sure. You give them a controller, and first thing they say is like, "Well, how can I break this? And how can I do something different with this?" And
Yeah.
it's almost like they don't want to look at the manual. They just want to pick it up and start playing with it and figuring out how it works, right?
Yeah, and sometimes that's a little difficult. They want to just pick up and go. But I mean, again, with the expeditionary systems, we are able to give them a little more leniency on, hey, yeah, go figure out what you can do with it.
Yeah, they're digital natives. They've grown up in this world.
Yes.
I want to come back to the rate. I do think it's really fascinating. So you went from aviation ordnanceman to mineman to now robotics warfare specialist. Um, I'm imagining now your journey is such you used to work primarily with ordnance, and now you're working more with systems. How was that transition for you?
Well, I mean, yes, early in my career, I worked a lot with ordnance, and I guess throughout my career, I worked a lot with ordnance. However, I was more of an operations and a CIC type of lineman, so I was always working with, the precise integrated navigation system, which is a network that pulls all sources and data sensors into one picture. And then I've worked with various number of sonars, the Klein 5000 side scan sonar, numerous robotics as far as ROVs. So it was kind of a steady progression. It wasn't just a snap switch. Okay, here you go. We're in technology now. So it was kind of a forward progression. And then I think when I transitioned into the acquisitions field for a little while, I was able to delve into it a little more with being an operational test director for, the Mark 18 systems and some of the newer systems that we're seeing come online now.
It's interesting about the mineman rate. And so you've alluded to this. There are some minemen that are like operations specialists. They're operating in the combat, the CIC of a mine sweeper, mine hunter. They're operating systems like sonars. They're operating systems like ROV that introduced you to the unmanned world. You have some minemen that are like bosun's mates, right? They work on the deck. They
Correct.
operate the sweep gear. They work that equipment. They operate boats. And then there's other minemen that are more like ordnancemen. They work in a magazine, they put the mine components together, that sort of thing. And I know there's some that end up being assigned to maybe all three of those, or they might shift a little bit. But it is one of the most interesting rates as a result of that, I think.
Yeah, it was very confusing growing up in the rate, especially when it came to advancement exams, trying to study all the different lives that I wasn't necessarily living.
Right.
I was more focused on the operations side of the house. But yeah, it was a very interesting journey, and you know, we got to see a lot of new systems come online, and we started to see, an influx in remotely operated systems. So I think it was a good path to go on in order to go into the robotics world.
I'm sure pretty soon, if we haven't already, there'll be a robotics warfare specialist A school. But I'm interested for you, like, what was training like to become proficient with unmanned systems?
So you're right, there is an A school coming online. We've been diligently working with NETC on the development of the curriculum. So that should be coming online hopefully soon. Um, However, for me, it was, taking a lot of my past experience and then going through the Mark 18 school, going through various ROV schools and ground vehicle schools, as well as UAS schools, and just taking that and honing the craft and really just developing my own skills and then pushing it out and not containing it, but finding people that had that niche to it, that really had an attachment to these types of systems, and almost cherry picking them onto the teams to where they could, carry the rate forward.
And how has the culture of the fleet adapted to having robotics warfare specialists alongside the other traditional communities?
Well, I will say, from my experience with the EOD community, they were very accepting. They knew the capabilities that we brought to the plate, and they knew how we could advance naval EOD into, today's technology world, instead of, just the old tie a string together and walk the bottom and we'll see if we find something. Now in a matter of hours, we can have the whole bottom combed out.
It's
And
amazing.
then, when you look into the NSW side of the house, they are also very accepting. They know that these guys are experienced pilots, and they know how to operate, maintain, and acquire these new systems and work them into their very particular battlefield. It's kind of weird speaking with the fleet now. Some of them don't realize that it is an actual rate. I was recently at a few events where we were bringing, initiating the new chiefs into the Navy, and some of them had no clue what my rate was, and they asked if it was a joke or if it was a pilot program. So yeah, it's a mix of the communities that know what we can offer, and a mix of still being a little unknown. And then I think there's, some heel draggers that think, okay, well, we can put 1,000 men on a ship and do this job. But yeah, so it's kind of mixed reviews throughout the fleet.
Well, I can understand that when something new comes in, but I can tell you also that there are some, especially of the younger generation, that will probably hear about this and they'll say, like, what? And they're going to want to put in a package to convert over to your rate. I can assure you that.
Oh, it's, yeah, 100%. I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of inquiries, emails galore about questions. What do we do? Are we just maintenance men? And I have to explain, no, we're not just maintenance men. We're actually operators. We're technicians. We deal a lot in strategy. So yeah, it's the new generation is otherworldly excited about the new rate coming online.
Are there any myths or misconceptions about the rate or about unmanned platforms in general that you have seen?
Oh yeah. Um, some of the myths I've seen is that we're just maintenance men. All we do is maintenance on these, and it's, you know, either a naval pilot operating these systems, or, only contractors operating these systems, when that's anything but the truth. We are down in the ground, we're working on these systems, we code these systems, we operate all the sensors, we operate these vehicles in various environments, Fifth Fleet, Seventh Fleet, Southcom, we're all over the place. So that's one of the biggest things when we came online. People thought we were just going to be maintenance guys, and we are not. Another misconception that I think I've seen is that we're not going to be around for long. We're just going to be a flash in the pan, and I try to explain to people all the time that technology will never go in reverse. We will only move forward, so our rating is always going to have a foothold in the future.
I agree. There's no doubt in my mind. And so, where do you see the unmanned undersea vehicles 5 or 10 years from now?
Oh, wow. I think with the leaps and bounds, so I first started using the Mark 18 family of systems back in 2012, 2013 timeframe. And the leaps and bounds of which we're at now, sky's the limit. I mean, I see a lot more AI and machine learning going into it. I see a lot of layered autonomy coming into play, with, rather than just having, a manned surface craft receiving the data, I see unmanned surface craft receiving the data, pushing it up through satellites or UAS capabilities to provide a more real-time or near real-time picture of what we're doing. I also see the greater capability of the find, fix, finish, the neutralization of targets, utilizing ROVs and UUVs alike.
Jessup, let's switch gears now and talk about FMMS 2025 and the Innovation Theater. This is an ASNE event. Why are events like this important for operators like you?
I would have to say the importance of events like this are to pool America's talent, to pool the people that are forward thinking, that do have the resources, ideas, and the conceptual knowledge and want to further technology. I think that gathering engineers from across America in these defense tech worlds is only going to vault our systems into a whole nother world where we need to be. I think a danger is staying in the past. I think we need to continually push ourselves forward. So when we involve the engineers and people with these STEM backgrounds and extensive products and resources, I think we're only going to better today's Navy. And then I think for the people on my side of the house, it's an eye-opening event. I know a lot of guys from my community plan on attending, and I think this is going to allow them the vision to know that people actually care. People are actually putting forth, a lot of energy and a lot of hard work, and there are careers built on advancing these systems that my guys will operate on a daily basis. So I think it's beneficial for both sides.
Well, we don't want to give too much away about what will happen at the panel, but I'm interested. What do you think we're going to learn, or what are we going to talk about in advancing robotics technology for fleet modernization?
Okay, well, there's going to be a couple of us on the panel from different communities within the robotics warfare rating. We're going to discuss some of our capabilities and possibly some of our limitations where we see the need to grow stronger and bolster our systems and advance the technology. Not necessarily that we're using now, because there could be an opportunity for brand new technology. I also think that there might be a couple systems on display that we could bring to show our guests what we're currently using in the fight today.
Right
But yeah,
on.
I think there will be a lot of knowledge and different community level discussions.
Well, I am certain it's going to be a great event and a great panel. I have one question before we close out, and that is, what advice would you give to young sailors or engineers that are interested in working with unmanned systems in the Navy?
Wow. I would say dream. Shoot for stars, aim for the stars, dream, dream, dream. Think outside the box. The more we think outside the box and the more we dream, the greater our technological advances and tactics and strategies will just soar and propel us into being the superpower we were meant to be.
Right on. Well, then, thank you, Robotics Warfare Specialist Master Chief Jusup Hansen, for taking this time to discuss robotics warfare, unmanned platforms, and a look at the Innovation Theater at FMMS 2025. I hope that we can have you back again sometime on Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the podcast of the American Society of Naval Engineers.
And thank you very much for having me, and I'd be more than willing to come back. Thank you so much.